Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Career Discovery presentation on Life After High School with Bank of North Dakota. I'm Amanda Wydula, University and Student Development Coordinator at the Bank of North Dakota, and I will be facilitating tonight's webinar. During tonight's session, students and their parents will learn how to make the most of their high school experience and make it an opportunity to develop the life skills that will serve them once they graduate, no matter if they're intending on going to college, the military, or straight into a career. Just some housekeeping items tonight. In the menu of the webinar, you will see both a chat and a Q&A feature that we're going to ask and encourage all of you to use for your questions or comments that you have about tonight's webinar. We will answer questions throughout the webinar as well as at the end, so please put them in the Q&A when you have them. If you have the questions, very likely that somebody else has the question as well. Tonight's speaker is Cindy Sanford. Cindy is the leader of education outreach and college planning at the Bank of North Dakota. She's enthusiastic about helping people find their career path and making sound financial decisions along the way. Cindy has worked in several roles throughout her career, working in both private and public sectors, plus owning her own business. Her favorite part-time job, and I know she's had a lot of jobs in general, was picking rose petals in Australia for rose oil. She's an active member of Toastmasters and has previously served as a board member for both Dollars for Scholars and several economic development boards throughout the state. In her free time, she enjoys her 2 grandchildren, being a lifelong learner, traveling, gardening, and reading. Welcome, Cindy Sanford.
Well, thank you, Amanda. So we will get started right away. And again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. Be glad to help wherever we can. So Career Compass, Life After High School. This is going to be your very first class on how to get ready to live away from home, and for parents, questions that you can ask your students as they're starting to get ready. It could be your first student, your last student, or maybe it's you that's looking at going back to school. So the next slide. Where will your next step take you? So some students could look at going to the workforce right away, military, apprenticeships, certificate programs, associate degrees, bachelor's degree, on-the-job training, and maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. Regardless of what path you take, knowing you believe and support those students is really important. No matter what path your students take, all of the experiences that they start will build on top of each other. For example, if a student is working on an associate degree, they might finish that degree and then go off to work and come back and then go on to their 4-year degree. Or they could be an apprenticeship or in a certificate program. Remember to keep those certificates and that information, because if you do decide to go back, that work experience and those can be carried on to a further 4-year degree. The next slide, please. There's several resources for both you and your student to start with. Bank of North Dakota College Handbook, of course, is a great one, and I'll come back to that. High School Counselor, Bank of North Dakota website. Are you ready? And I want to talk about that one a little bit. Every North Dakota middle school and high school student has access to Are You Ready? That's a software program with career exploration, education planning, and test preparation tools. There's ACT practice tests, choice planners, choice exploring. Both students and parents can access this information online anywhere. You can have your own account as a parent, or you can ask your student to invite you to look at theirs. There's college financial aid and admissions offices. Military recruiters have great information. What about relatives and mentors? So if your student doesn't know what they want to go into yet, maybe there's somebody that you know that they could tag along with and look at what they want to do next. Local businesses, and we have all kinds of information on our Career Compass, which I will come back and discuss that later. Okay. Has your student asked anyone about the field they're pursuing? So for example, if you want to be a teacher, talk to a first-year teacher, a fifth-year teacher, a 10-year teacher. At least get an idea what kind of education, what do they love about their job, What would they like to change about their job? There's all good questions that a student can ask. Links to most of these resources can be found on the Bank of North Dakota College Resources link, and I've discussed that a couple times, and here it is again. So bnd.nd.gov/college resources has tons of information, and you'll be able to go back after all the information that I'm sharing with you will be on that site also. Next, what conversations have you had with your student about taking the next step to adulthood? Over the next few minutes, we're going to talk about budgeting, financial aid for those going off to college or living on your own, and for the first time, and an overview of resources that are available once someone leaves home. Let's start with budgeting. Next one. Does your child have a budget, or do they know how to budget? Or is the budget looking like this person going, what is a budget? I have 3 children and taught them all the same about budgeting. And they definitely are all in 3 different places. I've got a spender, I've got a saver, and I have one in the middle. They all know how to budget, but they all use it differently. And often I have the spender looks like this picture. Why is budgeting so important? One of the main reasons, top 3 reasons that students drop out of college or change their jobs is because of finances. And those who choose to work, they need to know what finance is about and what savings for their future as they're going forward. Let's look at a simple budget and questions to discuss in each area. Next slide. This is a simple budget that anyone could go over. For freshmen living in a dorm, it might be a little smaller, such as a tiny budget on extras, food, maybe pizza, an occasional meal out. But for upperclassmen or young adults starting out on their own, there's a great chance to break down these living expenses and show them how to plan for their spending. Rent, car, insurance, food, entertainment are all part of a realistic spending. There is always teachable moments when talking about a budget. Here's an easy story. I had my kids, I said they all had money. I started accounts for them. Well, my spender decided to spend all the money he had and, of course, got an overdraft. I used that as a teachable moment, made him call the bank and apologize for overdrafting his account and not being responsible. What came out of that, he did not have to pay the fees, and 15 years later, he has never had another overdraft. There's also other teachable moments around budgeting, like how to buy groceries. And we're going to continue to go on with this. So savings, if your student is going to work, talk about saving 10%. A lot of companies match for their 401ks. Why is it important to start saving at the very beginning? If you have B&D has financial literacy videos that talks about the power of investing. Housing. Is your student in the military, your housing is taken care of. If your student is going to work and moving into an apartment, do they realize they're going to have to pay not only monthly, but they'll have to pay that first month deposit? Are they going to live in a very nice apartment? Or do they want something with a pool and a fitness center, a coffee shop, and all of the extras? Do they know how to compare those rentals? Do some of the rentals have utilities included? Do some not? And if utilities are not included, do they realize not having much of a credit score that they will have to put a deposit down for those utilities? That's also an easy way for them to build credit. What about roommates? Does everyone have a lease signed or only one person on the lease? I had a daughter who was the only one on the lease, and she ended up paying the whole months for everyone because they left. Who collects the money for the payment? Living in the dorm, that cost is about 30% is about the same, but everything is paid for there. But you still have to look. It's still a bill that has to be paid. Food. Here's a fun fact. Eating out increases your food budget anywhere from 10 to 20%. Does your student know how to shop for groceries? Do they use sales coupons? Do they buy everything that's eye level, which is usually more expensive? Do they know how to buy groceries for a week? College students, when they're talking about the food bill, what about a food plan? Okay, you can have the 21 meals a day. Are they really going to get up for breakfast every day? Some college plans often have plans that come with a credit card to spend in your snack bar, coffee shop, etc., etc. This definitely can be a lesson in how to use a credit card. So if they get $500, take the amount and divide that by the number of weeks in the semester so they understand how much they can spend each week. Like Amanda said, I've had several careers, and one of my past careers was a college food service. And I cannot tell you how many parents called me because their student was out of money on their credit card spending in the snack bar the first or second week, and they were calling home for more money on their account. Then there's always ideas on how can you save money living in the dorm? How about if you eat dinner and then maybe go out for a nice dessert afterwards? There's always ways to save different money. Questions on transportation. Is your student going to take a car to school? If so, who's going to pay for gas? Who's going to pay the insurance, oil changes, tires? Have you discussed who's going to pay for the on-campus parking? Or if you're working, do you realize that you may have to pay for downtown parking? At college, do you have an emergency fund if something happens? Or is it a call to mom and dad? What happens if you're driving home and you have a flat tire? How are you going to pay for that? Entertainment. With this one, that's going to vary. We suggest 5%. And if you're on campus, they have several free events. And if you're going to work and you haven't gone back to school, you can still attend some of those campus events. What about debt? Credit card debt, car loans, school loans. Have you discussed who's responsible for these debts? Or does your student understand that they were going to be responsible once they graduate? And how do you keep those under control? Other debts, cell phones. Who's going to pay for the cell phone? Who's going to pay for your internet? This is for both students going to school and at work. Next one, please. Since we're talking about money, let's talk about credit cards. Those credit card conversations. Does your student have a credit card? Or do they get it handed as they're walking out the door? Good luck. Or do they have Apple Pay, PayPal, Venmo? Do they know how to use them? Do they know how to pay them off each month? Do they realize what they're spending? A good example with credit cards is McDonald's used to accept cash, and the average check with cash was $3.81. Then they went to credit cards, and the average check overnight went up to $7.42. Maybe everybody decided to supersize. But if it's not cash, it seems to be easier to pay or pay for your friends. You may or may not need to give your student funds during the semester, but if you do, how is that going to work? Make sure that before they leave for college, you have a way to transfer money between accounts or through a service if it is a credit card. And with that, don't forget about the possibility of identity theft, which is increasing all the time. Students need to be very protective of their personal information, such as their birthday, social security number, credit card information, personal addresses. Identity theft is a major problem for consumers, which results in billions and billions of dollars in financial losses. And it could also hurt the student if they get into their account. So keep your personal information safe and talk about that when they go off to school. There's also the possibility of consider a credit freeze or credit monitoring to help keep your student protected. And actually you can watch some of their payments. Number 9, oops, excuse me. Next, has your student pulled their credit report? You can receive an annual credit report free every year. Does your student know how to, excuse me, the annual credit report goes from TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. Your student may not have credit now, but it's a good habit to get into to the future. And another good reason is maybe there's something already on the annual credit report. I have a very good friend that decided to talk to her or pull her 3-year-old granddaughter's credit report. She had $10,000 on that. So someone along the way had stolen her identity and put $10,000 on her credit. It's a good idea to look at that credit report at least once a year. Annualcreditreport.com. So have your student check before they leave. Next. Oh, and don't be fooled by sites asking for money for your credit report, because this is free. College-bound students. Okay, once students turns 18, FERPA and HIPAA laws do not allow a parent to see health, grades, or financial aid information. If a student goes to college, there's forms at the colleges and universities that students can sign to waive that right. This is a conversation that parents and students need to have before the student leaves for school. There's several parents who have had very loud conversations with the financial aid office because they were unable to find out what's on their student's account. So be sure those forms are filled. How involved do you want to be in your student's life? Here's a good example. I have a daughter who is a coach at a college. She has one of her athletes, her parents call her every morning to wake her up. So how involved are you going to stay with your students? Are you going to be, they used to call them the helicopter parent, and now they're referred to as the lawnmower or snowmobile parents because it seems like it's closer. So talk about how much involvement are you going to have in your child's life once they leave for college or off to work. Next. Have you completed the FAFSA for those that are going to college, which is the free application for federal student loan? The student has to complete a FAFSA. A student must complete a FAFSA to apply for federal financial aid and some other types of aid. Most students are required to provide information about their parents. So you can start applying now. This is a good opportunity. We have a lot of people say, well, I know that I won't qualify for anything. And I always say the answer is always no till you ask or till you fill out the application. Another good thing here is I'll have you go to the next slide. Have your student help you fill out the FAFSA report. I say it's good experience. So if they're ever going to buy a car, it gives you experience walking through what a loan application looks like. Going through those, it's just another opportunity to show students how something works. Okay, financial aid. So in the financial aid, studentaid.gov is where you will find that. All of this information, again, is on CareerCompass. We have videos on how to complete the financial aid. There's webinars that walk you through step by step. So I will send you back to those resources. Financial aid, you can look at grants. There's scholarships. Has your student completed the North Dakota Dollars for Scholars application? There's also a step-by-step webinar on how to do that on CareerCompass. The application opens January 1st, but your student can complete that application in advance. And the North Dakota Dollars for Scholars is also available for college students if you have someone else in there. Work study. When you complete your FAFSA, check work study. My daughter said that was the best job she'd ever had. Her work study job was giving tours around campus. And the other area is loans. I'm going to talk about Bank of North Dakota. If you're a North Dakota resident, there are no fees for our loans. So compare loans when you're looking out. And if you're going to complete a loan, have your student do it with you so they can learn how. Next. So how much should you borrow? Your yearly student loan payment should not be more than 8% of your net income after graduation. That's in a certificate, technical program, university program. Compare the dollars in education with the salary you'd make. For example, if your starting salary is $40,000 a year, don't take out any more than $25,000 in student loans. This will typically allow you to meet all your other obligations after you graduate, like groceries, rent, and all the other expenses we talked about in the budget. So you need to know what your future estimated salary is and borrow responsibly. Estimating your expenses can also help with that. There's tips to reduce your student loan. Graduate in 2 to 4 years. And how would you do that? When you're going through, the students are going through high school, the counselor takes the time and lays out all 4 years so that your student will graduate. Now it's the student's responsibility to look at the college and see what they have to take, when they have to take it to graduate in either 2 years or 4 years. Or same with the certificate program. What is involved? What do I have to do to complete this program? They can work and save. They can shop around for books and supplies. They can avoid credit cards altogether. Pay interest as it accrues. You do not have to borrow the max amount of money. You can take what you need instead of taking it all. And another one is attend classes. So what is the cost of a failed class? I can tell you because I had someone in my family who failed the class. It was $1,200 to retake the class, plus it was another semester on top of that. So what is the cost of a failed class? And does a student know how to drop that class? What is the drop date? Those are things that student has to take the responsibility for. That's not something that a parent can do. I'll go next. And again, I referred to the college handbook before. It also has information for students going to work or going to school. For readers, everything is in print. For listeners, we have YouTube videos with examples on financial aid and budgeting, plus all the Stacy and Amanda videos on scholarships. How do you live with a roommate for the first time if you've never had to share a room, and much, much more. Next. Campus resources. There are all kinds of resources that are available for free on campus. Now those are being changed right today with the different COVID, but there's still, those resources are still usually available. They may be tele or they may be in person. When looking at a college or university or certificate programs, apprenticeships, ask what is available for resources. There's free tutoring. Remember that $1,200 that was spent because of a failed class? That might have helped. Personal counseling for homesick, roommate issues, and much, much more. Career services, if you get to school and decide that's not what you want to do. Writing services, they won't write their papers for them, but they'll guide the student. And financial aid, I always said that the financial aid office should be your best friends. So you have your monies and you're able to talk to them if something comes up. Got the library, there's recreational services, some have childcare services, and there's always security. So if someone is studying and they need to walk home, campuses usually have security and they would walk them back to their dorms. Next. Healthcare. If it wasn't during the COVID days, we probably wouldn't be talking about these. But there are still questions that should be asked before you send your student off to college or off to work, if they're still on your health care. Next. You know, I talked about once a person turns 18, they're considered by law an adult. So again, there's those unintended consequences like the HIPAA and FERPA laws. But if They can still be on your insurance till age 26. So make sure that they have the health insurance card copy front and back with photos and have that in their phone. What about access to medical records? Is that something that needs to be signed off? That's another conversation that needs to be had. Have them memorize their social security number. Have list of allergies or important medical information written down. If they're already having medical or psychological care, they can work with, um, they can arrange to work with student health centers. And they're very helpful in suggesting local resources and clarifying with what services that are available. You want to contact them way before the semester begins. They can also help you with where to have prescriptions filled if needed. Store those numbers into the address. Have the students store those numbers into their contacts so they do have those. Because if the health center doesn't open 24 hours a day, then it's nice to know where the family's health insurance can be used so you don't have to pay out of pocket. Have them learn to read their own bodies. Okay. Can they take their temperature? Do they know if they're getting a cold or flu? Do they know how to go to a walk-in clinic? Or do they know how to make an appointment? I know I had one of my kids called and says, I don't feel good. How do I go to the doctor? I had always made those appointments for them. And why do I say medical records? Because we had a heck of a time getting the medical records to where she was going to school at. So talk to them about what happens if they're not feeling well. A first aid kit. First aid kit, I always just say it's good for any car or any dorm room or any apartment. Eye and dental, do they have the prescriptions or a copy of those prescriptions? What if lose a contact? So they don't have to be calling you and worrying about how to get that. And I'll go next. We talked about CareerCompass. So for more information on going to college, military, apprenticeships, and much, much more, we have all of this information and more on CareerCompass. I'd encourage you to follow social media for Bank of North Dakota. We always have upcoming videos and webinars. If your student doesn't know what they're interested in, there's great webinars on the military. There was apprenticeship ones today, college, Native American colleges, student loans, all kinds of the FAFSA. You will find a plethora of information on CareerCompass. So with that, if there's no questions, or if there's questions, I'll give it back to Amanda.
All right, so we are not seeing any questions. So last call for questions. You will put those in the questions box and then we will address them at this time. So I was just looking over the attendee list and I noticed that there are a lot of names that I don't recognize, which is absolutely wonderful because that means that we probably have some parents on the line of students or students themselves. So I just wanted to do a little plug about Career Compass. This is a new resource that we put out for students and parents this year. As you can see on the screen, there is the virtual college fair. While the fair is not active, students can still go in there and see the college fair booths. And then Career Discovery has all of the presentations. Tonight's presentation will be recorded and uploaded to the website usually about 12 to 24 hours after it concludes. But also all of the webinars that we have had previously to tonight are recorded and available for review. And we're actually doing a giveaway through November 30th. So parents, if you have a student who has not visited the college fair yet or not viewed the Career Discovery presentations, students and parents technically are eligible to win a pair of Apple AirPods. I'm pretty sure I said that right. Apple AirPods. I always get it wrong. they can get into a drawing to win those AirPods by attending 3 college fairs or 3 college fair booths and 3 career discovery presentations. So we are able to pull that data on who viewed and who hasn't and who's attended those. So we would love to be able to give those AirPods away to you and your students. Okay, so we do have, let's see, we have a thank you. Thank you for attending. We appreciate it. What is a good age to teach a child how to budget?
Well, I think you can start in grade school, middle school, 6th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. I mean, as easy as taking them shopping and why do you buy one product over another? You can start educating them then on how to budget. Simple budgets. There are all kinds of very easy budgets that we have actually on the North Dakota College website. And I believe under Mapping Your Future has budgets for 5th, 6th grade, 7th grade. And they're very simple. Just how to, if you get some money from grandma and grandpa, how to put that, what they're going to save, how much they're going to spend. And then they're very, very simple. But at any time in grade school is time to start.
Awesome. The next question is, how can I develop good credit? And this is actually a question that we get a lot when we're presenting in the high school. Students are very interested in how they can begin building their credit as young people.
And I'm going to give that one back to you, Amanda, because you do that all the time.
Sure. Yeah. So sure. So what I always tell young people I just tell them from a theoretical standpoint how they can build credit, just because, you go into taking out debt and all of that stuff. So a couple ways that students can begin building credit as young people is if the student is working and is in a position, maybe they want to purchase their car. Of course, vehicles, it's always best to buy used. And for high school students, it's always best I guess you don't want to get a total beater. It's best to get a car that is inexpensive but yet cheap, but yet safe. So if your student finds a moderately priced vehicle, you can always take out a loan for that vehicle. As long as it's moderately priced, uh, you can get a good interest rate on it, and perhaps you as a parent agrees to co-sign. That can help that student build their credit and build your credit as a co-signer by allowing that student to have that responsibility to take out a moderate amount of debt, a small amount of debt really, and begin paying that off in installments. And of course, there's no penalty for paying it off early. So that is one small way. Of course, having a car loan. I didn't have a car loan until I was 28 years old, and now I don't love it. So that's my personal story there. Another way is to get students a low limit credit card and have them use it only for those purchases that they need. So one example I always give students is have a credit card with like a limit of $500 and only use it, say, for gas for your car. Or maybe there's another thing that you pay for every month and then pay it off every month. So you get in the habit of, accruing a small amount of debt and then paying it off. So that will be a very simple way to build up your credit. And, starting with something small, like, only charging, say, gas, for example, to that credit card is a really, really simple way to do that. So those are just the two easiest examples. The two that seem kind of like the lowest risk for high school students. Of course, I realize that the vehicle loan isn't a reality for all students. But regardless, credit cards, they can be a tool for students as long as they pick the right one and they start off with a low limit to build up their confidence and their credit card skills, I suppose I can say. So that's usually what I advise to those students. But I also give them a warning. It takes a long time to build up your credit, but it takes absolutely no time to tank your credit as well. So, so the next question is do you know of a good way to keep budgeting and payments organized?
Well, if you go to the Bank of North Dakota website, we do have some really good, very well budget programs. There's all kinds of them. Do you want them on your phone? Do you want it? I mean, people budget all kinds of ways. Some do it online, some do it on their phone as they're getting their, if they pay for something, they put it in, it goes right away into it. It really depends on what kind of person you are and how dedicated are you. One on the phone, if you're not real good at budgeting, you might get one that's on your phone so that when you pay for something, it's going to go into that budget program. I don't have a favorite at all. It really is on, it's kind of like those weight loss ones. You just kind of have to find one that, food, which one you want to look for and what one's easier for you. Unless Amanda has one that you have a favorite of, I don't.
You know, I don't in particular, but I know that Mint by Intuit is a really popular one. Of course, you know, some people like to do the good old-fashioned spreadsheet system, but yeah, I think if you're more technologically savvy, I've heard Mint by Intuit is really good. You can link your bank account to it, so I think it automatically like sorts your purchases. So if you go to like McDonald's, it's like, okay, well, that's this kind of purchase. If you go to like Walmart, it's this kind of purchase. And I think then if you want to like parse it out, you know, even finer than that, you totally can. A comment, the Every Dollar app is also a good one. So there's a lot of them out there. And like Cindy said, it's just, you know, there's a million different apps for the same thing. It's just finding the one that works best for you.
And you can
So,
always go to our website and see if that works for you. We have a couple on the Bank of North Dakota website. There's a couple on Mapping Your Future, which is also the link on our website, and see how those work for you too. They're very simple. It's a good starter budget for
mhm.
students.
Yeah, and one thing that I always tell students, you don't have to get big and complicated with it. I mean, it just might start by writing down your expenses. So you realize, okay, this is how much I'm actually spending on these different things. So the next question is, how do I pick a major in college?
Well, I would number one start is, what do you like to do now? So you might look at doing a major in college, but talk to some people. So maybe you enjoy nursing. So if you enjoy nursing, um, see if you, does your mom or dad or someone know someone's in the medical career? Maybe it's nursing, maybe it's a phlebotomist, maybe it's an x-ray tech. Find out what kind of careers there are. Again, Are You Ready has all kinds of interest inventories, which is a good way to start also. But talking to other people of what you're trying, I always suggest try it before you start in it. That's a big mistake that a lot of people, they pick a degree, maybe throw a dart and say, I think I want to be this, but they haven't talked to anybody or they haven't done any research on that, and really look at what it's going to take to be in that career. There's, and CareerCompass has all kinds of great information on different areas. If maybe the military, there's a coding school one, there's apprenticeships that are today and Thursday again. Um, there's agricultural ones. So go out and look and see, just kind of do those interest inventories, and then you can, and look at what you're interested in. That's going to probably help you if you haven't decided yet. That help? More question?
We do not have any further questions. So, yeah, we don't have any questions. Again, if anybody has questions, this is your second last call for questions. So wonderful. All right, so while we're waiting for questions, like Cindy mentioned, we do have, this week is full of webinars. This is actually our third webinar this week, and our fourth and final webinar this week is going to be Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, so at noon, and we will explore apprenticeship programs with opportunities in as an aggregate service technician and electrical construction. So that will be on Thursday at noon. We did one today at 12:30, and the recording will be up tomorrow on rural electric cooperative careers, where we took a deep dive into to highline technicians and those kinds of careers, as airplane mechanics. So that was really exciting, and apprenticeships are very a unique educational opportunity in our state. So that webinar and all of our other webinars can be accessed on the Career Compass website on the Career Discovery tab of that website. So Cindy, we are not seeing any more questions, so I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you for the wonderful presentation this evening, and thank you everybody for attending and for asking such wonderful questions. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Yep, follow us on social media.